Jasmine had always loved the smell of coffee. The rich aroma of freshly ground beans and the soft hum of chatter around the cafe always felt like a small slice of peace amidst the chaos of life. For as long as she could remember, she had been drawn to the warmth and comfort of coffee shops. So when she started working at Bean and Bliss, the upscale coffee shop in the heart of downtown, she knew it was a perfect fit for her, at least for now. What no one knew was that this job, this role as a barista, was far from the limit of Jasmine's life. "Grande caramel macchiato, extra shot, no foam," she called out with a smile, setting the steaming cup on the counter. "Thank you, Jasmine." A regular customer smiled back as he grabbed his drink. Everyone liked Jasmine. She was quick, efficient, always kind, and most importantly, she knew how to handle the sometimes overwhelming crowds that filtered in and out of the cafe during peak hours. Today, however, felt different. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, and she had a feeling it wasn't just the rain clouds gathering outside. Then the door swung open, and in walked Mark. Mark was trouble, a middle-aged man in a tailored suit with the air of someone who believed he was better than anyone else in the room. He was one of those customers that every barista dreaded, impatient, condescending, and always ready to make a scene. Jasmine had dealt with him before, but today he seemed particularly agitated. The moment he stepped inside, the mood in the cafe seemed to shift. He strutted up to the counter, his eyes scanning the menu as if it were beneath him. Jasmine braced herself. She could feel his annoyance before he even spoke. "You, again," Mark muttered under his breath, loud enough for Jasmine to hear. "Do they not have anyone more competent working here?" Jasmine smiled politely, even as her heart sank. "Good afternoon, Mark. What can I get started for you today?" Mark rolled his eyes. "Get me a venti mocha latte, extra hot, 3 shots of espresso, no whip, and make it. Fast." "This time. Last time you were so slow I thought I'd die of old age." Jasmine nodded, refusing to let his words get under her skin. "Of course. 1 venti mocha latte coming right up." As she turned to prepare the drink, she could feel his eyes on her, scrutinizing her every move, waiting for her to make a mistake. The other customers in the cafe noticed too, their glances filled with discomfort, but no one said a word. "Unbelievable," Mark muttered again. "Can't find good help anywhere these days, and look at this place, it's full of idiots." Jasmine's fingers twitched as she tightened her grip on the espresso machine's handle. She wasn't new to this kind of treatment. In fact, she had encountered it far too often. People who assumed she was just a nobody, a lowly barista they could talk down to because of her race, her gender, or simply because they thought she wasn't worthy of respect. But Jasmine had learned long ago to rise above it. What they didn't know about her would be their undoing. She quickly finished the drink and handed it to Mark with a smile. "Here you go. Venti mocha latte, just how you like it." Mark grabbed the cup without so much as a thank you, sneering at her. "I'll be amazed if you didn't mess this up. Probably too busy thinking about your nails or whatever it is girls like you worry about." Jasmine's smile faltered for a split second, but she recovered, standing tall. "I hope you enjoy your drink," she said evenly, refusing to rise to his bait. Just as Mark was about to walk away, he took a sip of his latte and froze. His eyes narrowed, and he stormed back to the counter. "What the hell is this?" he barked. "Did you hear a word I said? I asked for extra hot. This is barely warm." Jasmine frowned slightly. "I'm sorry about that. Let me remake it for you." "Don't bother," Mark snapped. "You wouldn't know how to do your job, even if someone spelled it out for you. People like you should stick to what you're good at, whatever that is." The cafe had gone silent. Customers stared at Mark, then glanced at Jasmine, clearly uncomfortable with the way he was treating her. Jasmine could feel the heat of their stares, but she kept her head high. She wasn't going to let him get to her. As Jasmine was about to apologize again, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. It was a quick message from her father, reminding her about a meeting later that day. She quickly replied, assuring him she'd be there. In her rush, she didn't realize Mark was still watching her closely. "Who do you think you are, texting on the job?" Mark sneered. "Maybe that's why you can't even make a cup of coffee right. Too busy playing on your phone. This is exactly what's wrong with people today." Jasmine took a slow breath, the tension building inside her. This time, she didn't smile. I'm very sorry, sir, but I'll have to ask you to calm down. I've remade your drink, and if you have further complaints, I'll gladly get the manager. Mark scoffed, his face turning red with frustration. Manager? I don't need to talk to some underqualified, overpaid manager. You people are all the same, lazy, useless, and good for nothing but standing behind a counter. Jasmine stood still, her heart racing. She wanted to respond, wanted to tell him that his assumptions about her were not just wrong, but insulting. But she had promised herself she wouldn't lose her cool, no matter how demeaning the situation became. Still, her resolve was being tested. At that moment, the cafe's manager, Lisa, stepped out from the back. She had overheard the commotion and could tell something was wrong. Lisa was a short, blonde woman with a no-nonsense attitude, and she wasn't about to let anyone bully her staff. Is there a problem here? Lisa asked, stepping up beside Jasmine. Mark turned to her, his face twisted in annoyance. Yeah, there's a problem. Your employee can't seem to make a decent cup of coffee and has the nerve to act like I'm the one being unreasonable. Lisa raised an eyebrow, glancing at Jasmine, who gave her a small nod. I see, she said carefully. Well, I apologize if the service wasn't up to your standards, but I would ask that you treat our staff with respect. Respect? Mark let out a bitter laugh. You want me to respect someone who can't even do their job? You must be joking. Lisa's expression hardened. Jasmine is one of our best baristas, and I won't tolerate anyone speaking to her, or any of our staff, that way. For a moment, it seemed like Mark might back down, but then, in a fit of frustration, he threw the barely touched coffee into the trash and glared at Jasmine. You won't last long in this world, sweetheart. People like you never do. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, Mark caught a glimpse of the message flashing on her screen. It was a reminder from her father about the meeting later at Caldwell Enterprises, one of the largest corporations in the city. Mark's eyes flickered with recognition. Caldwell Enterprises, he asked, his tone suddenly curious. Why would someone like you be texting with them? Jasmine hesitated, realizing he had seen the message. She could tell from his expression that his interest had been piqued, but she wasn't ready to reveal the truth just yet. I'm meeting with someone later, she said vaguely, hoping that would satisfy his curiosity. But of course, it didn't. Mark's eyes narrowed as he stepped closer, his demeanor shifting from anger to suspicion. Meeting with someone? A barista like you? At Caldwell Enterprises? Don't make me laugh. Jasmine didn't respond, simply turning away to help the next customer, but Mark wasn't done. You must know someone there, huh? Maybe a friend in low places. No way someone like you has any real connections. Lisa stepped forward, about to escort Mark out of the cafe, when the door opened once more, and a tall man in a sharp, expensive suit walked in. He scanned the room before his eyes landed on Jasmine, and a warm smile spread across his face. Jasmine, he called out, his voice loud enough for the entire cafe to hear. Mark turned around, confusion washing over his face as the man approached Jasmine and gave her a hug. I hope I'm not interrupting your shift too much. We've got that meeting at 3 p.m., remember? Jasmine smiled, visibly relieved to see him. Of course, I'll be there. The entire cafe was silent as the man turned to Lisa and nodded politely before addressing Jasmine again. Your father mentioned that today's meeting is important. Caldwell Enterprises is looking forward to your input. Mark's jaw dropped. What? He stammered, completely caught off guard. Her father? The man smiled, not noticing Mark's confusion. Yes, her father. He's eager to hear your thoughts on the expansion plans for Caldwell Enterprises, Jasmine. You've always had an eye for strategy. Jasmine nodded, maintaining her composed demeanor despite the growing tension in the room. The moment of revelation was approaching, and the shift in Mark's expression made it clear that he was beginning to realize just how wrong he had been. Lisa, the cafe manager, looked at Jasmine with a mix of pride and surprise, though she'd known bits of Jasmine's story. The other customers had fallen completely silent, some casting glances at Mark, eager to see how this would unfold. Mark swallowed hard, his arrogance evaporating as reality set in. Jasmine Caldwell. The young black barista he had belittled was the daughter of the CEO, of Caldwell Enterprises, one of the wealthiest and most powerful businessmen in the city. Not only that, but she was apparently heavily involved in the family business, far more than anyone, especially Mark, could have guessed. Jasmine's colleague stepped forward to take over the counter, allowing her to step aside and speak to the man in the suit, her father's trusted associate. They talked in hushed tones about logistics and schedules for the upcoming meeting, but as they spoke, Jasmine could feel Mark's stunned gaze still lingering on her. She turned back to him, her eyes meeting his. "You," Mark stammered, his usual confidence completely shattered. "You're Caldwell's daughter? The Caldwell?" Jasmine gave a slight nod. "Yes, but that doesn't change anything about what just happened." Mark's face turned pale as he realized the weight of his actions. He had insulted, belittled, and harassed the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the city, and now there was no way to take it back. The smug entitlement he had walked in with had been wiped clean, replaced by an awkward, panicked energy. I didn't know," Mark stammered, desperately trying to salvage the situation. "If I had known, I would never have—" Jasmine held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Exactly. If you had known who I was, you would have treated me with respect. But here's the thing, Mark. I'm not asking for respect because of my father's status or my involvement in the company. Respect shouldn't be conditional on someone's title or wealth. It's something everyone deserves, whether they're a CEO, a janitor, or a barista." Mark opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. His face flushed with embarrassment as the weight of Jasmine's words sank in. The entire cafe was watching now, and the silence was thick with anticipation. Mark's usual smugness had been replaced by an air of desperation, and for the first time since he had walked into the cafe, he was the one who felt small. Jasmine continued, her voice calm but firm. "People like you think you can treat others poorly because you assume they're beneath you. You didn't even see me as a person. But you know what? It doesn't matter what job I have, where I come from, or who my father is. What matters is how you treat people, period." Mark's eyes darted around the room looking for a way out. I'm sorry," he finally blurted out. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to." Jasmine nodded. "I understand, but let's be clear. Your apology doesn't mean much if it's only coming because you found out who I am. If you truly regret how you acted, maybe you should think about how you treat people every day, not just the ones you think can benefit you." Mark's face was now a deep shade of red. He looked down at the floor, utterly defeated. There was nothing left for him to say, no more excuses to make. Lisa, the manager, stepped forward. "Mark, I think it's time for you to leave," she said firmly. "We won't tolerate this kind of behavior here." Without another word, Mark turned and hurried out of the cafe, his head hung low. The door swung shut behind him, and the tension that had gripped the cafe finally began to ease. A few moments passed in silence before the regular customers slowly began whispering to one another, some casting impressed glances at Jasmine, while others muttered about how Mark had gotten exactly what he deserved. Jasmine, for her part, remained poised, though the weight of the moment was not lost on her. The man in the suit, her father's associate, smiled at her. "I'll see you at the meeting," he said softly. "Your father will be proud to hear how you handled yourself today." Jasmine gave a small nod. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft but steady. As the man exited the cafe, Jasmine turned back to Lisa, who gave her a proud smile. "You did good, Jasmine. Real good." Jasmine smiled back. "Thanks, Lisa. I just wanted to make sure he understood." "He definitely did," Lisa said, nodding. "I think you taught him a lesson he won't forget anytime soon." Jasmine looked around the cafe, where the atmosphere had returned to its usual lively hum. The customers were back to their conversations, and the staff had resumed their work. For a moment, Jasmine just stood there, taking it all in. She had always known that people like Mark existed, people who would look down on her because of the color of her skin, her job, or just because they thought they were better than everyone else. But today, she had stood up not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been treated the way Mark had treated her. In the end, It wasn't about her secret identity or her father's status. It was about something much bigger, about reminding people that dignity and respect are not privileges to be earned, but rights that belong to everyone. As Jasmine tied her apron back on and returned to the counter, a warmth settled over her. She might be the daughter of a CEO, but today she was proud to be just Jasmine, the barista who demanded respect, not because of her connections, but because she, like everyone else, deserved it. And that was more than enough.